r/Nosleep. Posted by u/Mr_Mojo_Rising95. I started a new job as a overnight security guard at a private cemetery. The previous guard gave me list of rules which I can't comprehend. Part 3: Thunder and Lightning. Hello all, again thank you for the concerns. I should have listened sooner. Right now I am in the hospital. I'm missing some fingers and I don't think they are done with me yet. My last shift is tomorrow and I will try to update when I can. Let me tell you what happened on my third shift so far. I left my house after the call from the mysterious woman. I knew I had messed up. Who could follow all those rules while being scared half to death? I raced down to the cemetery. Already I could feel my stomach in my throat. The sky was dark for being this early, windy and cold. A storm was on the horizon. It was one of those days where the quiet thunder rolls in from the hills and crashes lightning in bright streaks across the sky. The cemetery gate was off its hinges, swaying back and forth from the strong winds. It clanked loudly against the iron, echoing through the field. I powered through, my leg throbbing with each slight movement. Down the narrow path, I hardly noticed the cemetery was empty. Not a single grave was in the lot. Just a lot of dry dead grass. Of all the crazy shit I've seen in the past few days, this was the least of my concerns. When I reached the hut, the classic Cadillac with dark windows was parked out front. The woman with red hair and milky white skin sat on the hood smoking a cigarette. Her dark glasses reflecting the glow of her cigarette. The thunder began roaring in sync. I pulled up alongside her, grabbed my bag, which had an empty water bottle in it this time. She met me halfway, flicking her cigarette into the grass. I approached her tentatively while the butt of her cigarette with a bright red ember singed the dried grass at my feet. "Do you know why I'm upset with you?" she asked, adjusting her sunglasses, her hips swaying about. "Well, I guess it had to do with me not following the rules." A streak of silent lightning etched across the night sky. "Correct, Henry, and with disobedience comes repercussions," she snapped back. I could feel the lump in my throat again. Well, you never told me about all that crazy shit that was going on here. You have been paid handsomely, Henry. You did not follow the rules and now payments must be returned, my dear, her voice becoming more demanding. "Okay, fine, take back some of my payments, but you have some explaining to do," I nervously replied. "Not at this time, Henry, do you hear that?" On cue the thunder erupted. I winced as the deafening thunder bellowed. "That's for you, Henry, you've made it this far with your life, Robert, can't say the least," she said with a crooked smile while my nervous smile reflected in her glasses. She approached me slowly, grabbing something from her behind her back. I cautiously stepped backwards. Hey, stay away from me, lady." Treading backwards, I tripped over something hard. A gravestone popped up from behind me and I hit the dirt. My knee rang out in pain. The wind howled, sending branches flying. The woman straddled me in a flash, her knee digging into my knee, which was now bleeding again. Her wild red hair flailing in the wind. She revealed a steel blade from behind her back with an ornate red crystal handle, the blade reflecting the moonlight. Her wicked grin grew wider as she squeezed my wrist. I writhed and wriggled to get free, where she would then dig her knee deeper into my wounds, sending red-hot pain surging through my body. Squeezing my hand, she put the blade to my fingers. "A payment, Henry, don't you think?" I cried out and grimaced with fear. With a few clean slices, feeling wet-hot, she sliced through 3 of my fingers, leaving my index finger and thumb. They dropped to the ground, curled up and bloodied. I let out a sickening wet screech followed by a boom of thunder and lightning. "Get up," she said, licking the blood from the blade, "your shift starts now." I stood up, dizzy and faint, and wrapped my hand tight within my shirt. I was losing blood quick. The woman disappeared into her Cadillac and took off. A silent thunderbolt lit up the dark field. Instantly I was surrounded by gravestones. I made my way into the hut, answered the ham radio. It was the woman. All she told me was to use the first aid kit under the desk and that if I left, I would be killed before I could reach the gate. I poured alcohol over my cuts, and wrapped it tight. My hand felt lighter. I wanted to leave in that moment, knowing whatever death I may face, whatever Robert faced before he left us, had to be something sinister. The rain never came, just low thundering and bright streaks of lightning. With each bolt of lightning, the cemetery lit up. Once there would be dozens of gravestones, next there would be 2, then none, and so on and so forth. I snapped back when I realized there was a rule about this. The thunder was getting louder with each passing lightning strike. It was close. I rummaged for the list and read through them again. Rule 4, if gravestones begin to appear and disappear, go outside and pour oil over them, oil located under the desk. There it was, pour oil over gravestones if they begin to appear and disappear. I looked under the desk and behind the first aid kit was a rusty old can, filled to the brim with viscous black oil. I grabbed the tin with my good hand. The lightning crashed again as a single large tombstone appeared near inches from the glass of the hut. Nearly falling over, I let out a little whelp by its sight. I nervously walked out into the darkness, the cool winds blowing into my face. The gravestone must have been 8 feet tall. I was shocked by the warmth that was radiating from it. I shakily tipped the oil can over the gravestone, not knowing what to expect. The oil bubbled and oozed where it began to melt away the rock like acid. Soon the gravestone was a melted pile on the ground. A lightning bolt crashed quietly, illuminating the field, revealing the normal-looking cemetery. I raced back inside, not wanting to stay out past 10 minutes, and waited. With each bolt of lightning, the field lit up and revealed the same number of gravestones. I counted carefully each time. As the night went on, boredom began to seep in, and the pain in me was now a dull throbbing ache. My lips were dry and cracked, and my head felt like needles were being jammed into it. While I rested in pain, trying to resist the urge to puke, a single lowly bee landed on the glass in front of me. I didn't recall ever seeing a bug out here. Puzzled, I stared at him as he roamed about the glass. Then another, one by one, bees landed on the glass. Hundreds upon hundreds enclosed the glass, darkening the inside of the hut, their vibrations growing louder. I read over the rules again. Rule 2, if bugs start landing on the hut's glass window, burn the candles that are under the desk till your shift ends. Before I could burn the first candle I had, a bee made its way through the crack in the glass where my phone used to be lodged in. It buzzed around the room, bumping into the light fixture. I hadn't known what to do at this point, grasping the candle in my good hand. More bees poured in, the buzzing grew louder. I dove back towards the door, covering myself in my hoodie while the bees flooded in. Now they were landing on me. I frantically tried to light the match with my hand, but with each swipe, I would drop the matchbook. I swatted them away desperately, each sting feeling like a hypodermic needle in my skin. Every inch of loose skin was getting stung. One lucky one stung my left eye as I reached for the dropped matchbook. I shrieked at the white-hot pain searing and yanked the stinger from my eye. I couldn't see. With the matchbook in my mouth, I struck the match and heard it catch. I held the match to the candle as bees crawled all over me, waiting for the wick to catch. I covered my eyes with my hand, squinting to see if the candle took. When I saw the little orange flame light up, I opened the hut door and fell out into the cemetery, slamming it behind me. I waited by the door as the bees swarmed inside. My watch counting down the minutes, no longer than 10 minutes out here. My legs were starting to get shaky as the minutes winded down. I could see yellow light faintly out in the distance with each lighting strike. The being was waiting. Sweat rolled down my brow as my final minute came, then, back into the bee swarm. Not wanting to face the being which I think killed Robert, I reached for the door, closed my eyes and slowly walked in. The buzzing was deafening. I stood in the middle of the hut as the bees crawled over me, an occasional sting here or there. I waited what felt like a century till I noticed the buzzing was getting quieter. Soon I gathered enough courage to open my eyes. There were hardly any bees left in the hut. I stood still again, and waited a few more minutes till all I heard was quietness. Raindrops began pelting the glass. The bees were gone. I sat on the floor sobbing. My body was aching with stings, throbbing all over. I looked at my hand where my fingers were, feeling like I could still flex them, and noticed a bee was crawling into my open wound. I frantically reached to grab it, wailing as it dug in my skin. I couldn't get a hold of it as it disappeared within me. I sat there wide-eyed, sickened. My finger was dripping a stream of blood onto the floor while my jaw gaped open, tears racing down my face. I know what I saw. A bee was inside me. I could feel it slightly moving within me. I curled up on the floor and cried. The candle burning bright next to me. I don't know when, but I must have passed out after that. Either blood loss or shock from the stings. I went out cold. I awoke to a bright sky, the sun blaring through the glass. The candle was nothing more than a burnt wick. My heart sank when I realized it may not have stayed lit for my whole shift. My head was spinning, my knee and hand covered in dried blood. My eye felt like I had baseball-sized welt on it. I could barely see out of it. I stood up hazily and looked around. The cemetery was empty again. Waiting outside for me was the woman with red hair. She sauntered over and unlocked the door. She looked at my hand, winced as a bee bumbled past her and motioned for me to get out. I sobbed as I walked towards my car. I could feel her presence watching me, or something's presence watching me. I drove myself to the hospital after that. I told them about the bee, but they didn't believe me. They asked what happened to my fingers. I made up some story of my fingers getting caught in a weightlifting machine that sliced them right off. They looked at me cautiously. Their caution turned to confusion when I also confessed that I got stung by a swarm of bees as I left the gym to rush to the hospital. While I sit here in the hospital bed, I know they are watching me. I can feel their presence around me, when I'm walking about. The wounds where my fingers were ballooned to a massive size, I could occasionally feel a tickle or a vibration somewhere in my body. I wonder if my buddy was making a hive somewhere inside me. My finger wounds oozed a gluey white and green pus that the nurse changed hourly. It smelled horribly and my skin was turning green. As I rested in bed, I got an email on my laptop. It was from the woman. All it read was, "Tomorrow shift, your last one, be there or you will have another payment to owe." I half smiled and half sighed. I can't believe this is happening to me. I feel like I am losing my damn mind. I will keep you guys posted after my last shift tomorrow if I make it out all right. Thank you guys for the support.